This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Well, whatever plan we had for this episode of Real Talk on this Monday, July 15th, changed on Saturday night, just about 36 hours ago, as the former president of the United States, he wants the office back, Donald Trump, survived an assassination attempt at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. We'll get into that with Charles Adler, all of the implications. Adler's convinced that Trump essentially won the election. As a matter of fact, Chug has no doubt about it by surviving that assassination attempt. We'll get into his thoughts on that, exactly how this changes the landscape for Joe Biden and the Democrats and what this means for the United States. All of that coming up in this episode of Real Talk, which is presented with the support of HRO Training. You may have seen that episode we did just a couple of weeks ago talking about workplace safety. Well, we want to invite you to take in this webinar. It's happening August 2nd at 11 o'clock Mountain, 1 p.m. Eastern. Ensuring safety excellence, overcoming contractor management challenges. If this is in your wheelhouse, you know the safety industry is in crisis. Nearly 3 million workers are dying every year from occupational injuries or work-related diseases globally. You're invited to join host Chris Labassi, CEO of We Know Training, and Rob Stewart, who joined us on Real Talk. He's an applied behavioral scientist and the subject matter expert behind HRO Professional Roadmap to High Professional Safety. You can learn more about this by attending. You're going to gain valuable insights into taking a more intelligent approach to evaluating contractor performance. If you're the one making decisions in your workplace, you know that HRO training is no joke, and it's something you're not going to want to miss. That's, again, coming up on August 2nd, the webinar. You can save 20% off if you're buying HRO training by visiting the website. That's hro.training. Use the promo code Ryan20, Ryan20 to save 20% off at hro.training.
And if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
That the unmistakable sound of shots fired in Butler, Pennsylvania on Saturday. Everybody's seen the video now as shots continue to ring out. Donald Trump surrounded by Secret Service agents after grabbing at his ear, falling to the ground, and then just a short time after that, standing up defiantly, chanting, "Fight, fight." Charles Adler was in touch with me it felt like minutes after that happened, and your text said one simple thing to me, and that was Trump won the election tonight. Welcome back to the show, Chug.
Thanks a lot, Ryan. It's probably crass in real time to say something like that publicly, so I didn't. I waited for a couple of hours, and I did say privately to you because, of course, we're brothers.
I don't know if that's crass. I think that a lot of people, as soon as it was apparent and obvious that Trump had survived this, and we'll get into all of the scuttlebutt around it and all the thoughts and the speculation online and the conspiracy theories and everything like that. But once it became apparent that Trump had survived, that this was indeed a legitimate and real incident, people did, of course, because this is what people do, especially during an election campaign, people did start to speculate, what does this mean? What does this mean moving forward? What does this mean for Donald Trump? What does this mean for Joe Biden? But what was it that your gut was telling you within minutes of this happening that the outcome of the presidential election had all but been determined?
And by the way, when I say crash, to say it publicly, I mean, if I go on the air somewhere and on this podcast, even on social media, the moment it happens, which is how I felt that he had just won the election. And, I mean, you're supposed to do the thoughts and prayers thing. I left that out because I find that totally hypocritical for the most part. But I'm just saying that the moment an assassination attempt is made, you don't publicly say he's just won. So I waited for a while. Anyway, I don't want to bog down on that too much. I just wanted to explain. I feel no guilt about saying what I said. I was simply trying to say that the timing of how you say things and when you say them, I think matters. Just about public decorum. But as far as winning the election, every now and then we have a candidate that has not supernatural power, I think that's ridiculous, but has the impact of a supernatural candidate. That is, that people think that he is not just a regular human being, that he's someone else. There are a number of people in the United States, and I'm not talking about a handful, I'm talking about many, many millions, who are overtly religious. There are a number of others who have been informed by religious values. They don't call themselves religious, but at the core, that's where their values come from. And I think there are also a lot of people who are just superstitious. Not all of them are athletes. There are millions of people who are superstitious. You combine the religious with the superstitious. They look at what happened on Saturday, and their conclusion, whether they word it this way or not, publicly or privately, their conclusion is somebody up there wants Donald Trump to be president.
Yeah, I've seen some people speculating about that. I mean, obviously, if you already believed that Donald Trump was God's gift to America, God's gift to the world, then you might choose to apply that logic to this scenario. I've also seen people suggest that, if the Lord Almighty was going to intervene in shootings and protect those that needed to be here, he probably would have shown up in Sandy Hook as well. Not to be cynical, but I don't know if we want to apply spirituality to this.
I'm not doing that. I'm saying that many Americans see it that way. I mean, I give you the ground game stuff. Everyone's always concerned about getting out the vote. Does anybody doubt right now, no matter how you feel about Trump, and I'm not a pro-Trump guy at all, I hope he loses, but I don't think he will. Here's the deal. If you're worried about getting out the vote, do you think there will be any problem motivating Trump supporters to turn out on November 5th?
It is like, put it this way, I've never seen anything quite like somebody, take a bullet to the ear, survive a shooting, survive an assassination attempt, and within 4 seconds pop back up to their feet and start pumping their fist and chanting, fight, fight. I'm not suggesting it was staged. I don't think it was staged. We can talk about the conspiracy theories. Johnny and I have been texting back and forth through the weekend about how crazy this all is, but I will say that he definitely, I think, while he was certainly in shock, and probably everybody there was in shock, he saw an opportunity to respond in a way that would forever be remembered, and he delivered. And I don't know if I'm giving him credit for that, but he sure he didn't allow himself to be whisked away and sort of like babied and that sort of a thing. He wanted to stand up. He wanted people to see his face. He wanted to defiantly raise his fist in the air. You have to assume that he didn't know what was happening. He didn't know where the shooter was. He didn't know if there was one or more shooters. He wanted to be back up in front of the people. I just think, and my understanding is that people were shouting shooter down to the Secret Service agents and all that kind of stuff. But like from start to finish, just an absolutely wild scenario.
Well, once he felt something in his ear, once he understood what had been going on, and though at that particular moment he had no idea whether there were other shooters, but at that moment something in Donald Trump's performative brain clicked, and he became the director and producer and star of his own reality show. That's tough to beat. It's not tough to say that raising money for him will be easy. Having rallies that are filled, because many of his rallies were not full houses recently. It will not be difficult for him to attract voters, rally participants, and most important, the mother's milk of politics, money.
Johnny, how are you wrapping your mind around all this? I think everybody that listens to the show knows you're originally from Florida. You've got some relatives in the United States. You pay attention to a certain degree to American political stories. You and I were texting within half an hour of this happening.
Yeah.
Just on how wild it was.
Yeah, and I had some family down there text me right away, and they said
right?
the same thing you and Charles said. They said this election is over, and at first I was relaxing. I was watching TV, and then of course my ex just started going crazy, and my wife actually came down. My partner Jatinder was like, "Did you see what happened to Trump?" And I was like, "Oh, is that why my phone's going off? I'm trying to relax on a Saturday." And I just started seeing it, and all these conspiracy theories, like it was staged, and 8 shots, it didn't hit him, but it clearly was not staged. And I agree with Charles. I think this goes a long way for him. And I think no matter what you say about Trump, he's a smart guy, and he knew to not just, fall on the ground and get off the stage. That getting up and that fist pump, those pictures we saw, that's going to be a part of history forever. And I think that one picture that we keep showing right now, right here, if you're looking on YouTube, this is his ticket right to the White House.
Yeah, for people listening on the podcast, this is the one of him. He's got like the blood coming off his ear, and there's the American flag behind him. He's got his fist raised in the air. It's one of those images, Chuck. Justin in the live chat says, I don't know if I think that he's now more popular with folks that would have voted for him anyway. He says he's maybe more popular with folks that would have voted for him anyway, Justin says. His voter turnout will be high, but I don't know if it's going to sway voters. But empathy is powerful. That's the question. Like, will it sway voters? But I also don't know if that's the biggest or most important question, because Trump was leading heading up to this. Like, this is almost more. And again, do I need to offer the caveat now that you did earlier that? Sorry that we're talking about brass tacks now. I mean,
no more apologies. We've done our apology.
But there's a million angles, and we're sorting this out. It kind of felt I was sort of hoping, to be honest with you, that we would have done the show yesterday on the Sunday, because it was I'm eager to talk about it, eager to get in front of this audience, and I know that everyone's eager to hear what you have to say about this. But obviously we can talk about the real life stuff, the human stuff too. Talk about the shooter, talk about, the people that were in the audience. There was obviously, in addition to the shooter, an innocent civilian at the rally lost his life, was killed, a fire captain that had just retired that was attending a political rally, probably not thinking he'd be shot and killed. So there's tragedy there, obviously. This type of thing brings some people together. This type of thing drives some people apart. But this was not a neck and neck election. Like, that's not what pollsters are saying. And up until Saturday afternoon, all anybody was talking about was how much longer Joe Biden would stick around before, George Clooney and the celebrities or the power players within that party could convince him to walk away. So for 48 hours now or so, maybe less than that, the narrative has completely changed, and nobody really, at least for now, give it a day or so till it resumes again. Nobody right now is talking about Joe Biden, except for wondering what this does to the Democrats' chances. They've had to pause all their advertising. They've had to pause everything out of good taste. I mean, obviously there'd be big blowback were they to proceed with that uninterrupted. But right now, the question was not, could Trump sway, undecideds or those that were going to vote for the Democrats over to the Republicans. And obviously he's not even officially the Republican nominee yet, but he will be in the next couple of days at the convention. The question is simply just now. I mean, I looked back, pretty wild, just 1 month ago. It was just 1 month ago you and I were doing a show here talking about whether or not the GOP needed to dump Trump, right? After the convictions, right? After basically now you say, well, now he is a convicted felon. Does the GOP need to dump him? Now it's basically the ticket to ride. A lot can change in 4 weeks on the campaign trail.
Things change quickly. I thought last week at this time that we'd be talking about the Joe Biden dynamic today, whether or not the Democrats will find a way to replace Joe Biden, whether Joe Biden will find a respectable, honorable, classy way of walking off the stage and passing on the torch. And that was just a few days ago. And of course, now that story, that soap opera about whether or not Joe goes, that feels as old as Joe Biden. I mean, things get old in a hurry in this business, and a bullet can change everything immediately. I just want to focus, not to be too wonky about this, but what Johnny and you are talking about, does it really make a difference to the Trump fans? I think that we sometimes overestimate participation of fans and supporters. The truth is, in almost any election in North America, if you get anywhere over 60% turnout, it's considered a real big deal. So turnout is a big deal. One reason turnout is not as high as it could be is because many people who do support don't necessarily vote. First of all, they make their minds up that the guy's going to win anyway. And the other thing is they've got all the same reasons everyone else has not to vote. They don't want to be bothered. So what I'm saying is that something like this motivates virtually everyone who's a Trump supporter to vote. If every Trump supporter had voted in the last election, nobody can doubt that states like Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin and Georgia and Nevada and Arizona would have gone Trump. But the fact is, many people who supported Trump didn't vote for him. Many thought they'd win anyway. And once again, they had all their other reasons. This time, Trump supporters are much more highly motivated to vote, and that matters.
I agree. I think people who maybe quietly supported Trump, who did not come out last election, now have those thoughts in their heads that the last election was a little rigged, things went wrong, and now this. I think it's going to motivate those people to come out and vote. Yeah.
Charles Adler is presented on Real Talk by Tice Automotive Consulting. Taking a look at our live chat, Tobias says, you guys would have been happy if this was a different ending and you would be milking it.
Oh, really?
Which is kind of, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it needs to be said, but I wouldn't be happy to see anybody assassinate. Well, I mean, let me offer caveats there. If this was World War II, if we were sitting around here in 1945 doing a talk show and Adolf Hitler was assassinated, I guess I'd be okay with it. But I would never be happy to see a political opponent assassinated. Charles, there have been some of those expressions online on social media and otherwise. There's one in particular. There was a professor. This was one that you pushed out here. A professor of teaching here at University of British Columbia, Dr. Karen Pinder, who tweeted from her official account, "Damn, so close, too bad." Followed it up with a tweet, "What a glorious day this could have been." After somebody responded to her, yeah, now he'll milk being a victim for more votes. I really wish the person had better aim. This professor from UBC has since taken down her Twitter. She's not the only one to sort of, I think, knee-jerk reaction post on social media, stuff like that. You think somebody like that in a position to potentially lose their employment, although tenure is a hell of a thing at universities, do you think that's the right move? I'm just curious for your comment on this. I know that you noticed that story out of Vancouver.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed for any Canadian tweeting that kind of nonsense. I was even embarrassed for Polyev, and obviously everyone knows I'm not a fan, but I was embarrassed for Polyev when he, in his tweet, felt he had to say that he was glad that the suspect was dead. I'd be glad to see the suspect arrested. I'd be glad to have the suspect put on trial. I'd be glad to see due process. It's saying I'm glad that someone is dead. I mean, I'll use your caveat. Short of Adolf Hitler, I don't know if I could ever say I'm glad that. Anyway, to get back to the professor, my guess is the University of British Columbia will take some disciplinary action because there is such a thing as academic freedom, but there is such a thing as taste, as you were mentioning earlier with respect to the Biden campaign, pulling advertising for a couple of days and maybe toning down their message a little bit for the next few days, and making offering a much more of a unity message, much less of a divisive message. Even Trump apparently has told people that he will tone down his message this week at the Republican convention, that it'll be a more unity message as opposed to what he usually does. We'll see if he.
Do you believe that?
I think that Trump is a tremendous actor. Nobody should doubt that anymore, because how many of us can even go into acting mode when we've been hit by a bullet, albeit grazed? It doesn't matter. Graze is still too close for comfort. And as I said earlier, he went into actor, producer, and director mode the moment he saw a political advantage. So I think it will be to his political advantage to play the role of statesman this week. And I think he will be more statesman-like. Don't be surprised, Ryan and Johnny. Don't be surprised if Biden is involved in the speech, in the sense that Trump will say kind words about Joe Biden. Trump hasn't done that in years, maybe never. He will say kind things about Joe Biden and likely thank him for the call that Joe Biden gave him personally after the assassination attempt. So will Trump be Trump? Of course he will be. And he'll have his typical Trumpian moments. But he will be more statesperson-like this week than he has been in a long time. He's being given a golden opportunity here to be a unifier. And remember, every Republican knows about the golden age of republicanism. Everyone knows that Ronald Reagan did have what some people will call supernatural talent, if not powers. And Trump has obviously won an election. He lost the last one in the popular vote by millions and lost the Electoral College. Yes, he also lost by a couple of million to Hillary Clinton, but won the Electoral College. The point is, Trump would love to have a landslide. He's sniffing landslide right now, and a unity message would help him do that.
I think also Biden, he is going to tone down. He's going to stop attacking Trump. But also, I think Biden's team kind of missed out on this. They waited a long time to put any sort of a message out after this. And people online really took hold of that and could see that he wasn't saying. And then when he finally said something, it was very produced. I know we're going to get into it here.
Yeah,
now.
We'll get to what Biden had to say. I mean, a moment of levity. If Biden tones to anything down any further, he's going to slip into a coma.
But you know what I mean?
He's been trying to rally some energy, but you're right. I mean, so he's being criticized. I mean, how about, this is one example of many of Biden's critics in all of this. This is Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, who says, tweeted this on Saturday after it happened. Today is not just some isolated incident. The central premise of the Biden campaign is that President Donald Trump is an authoritarian fascist who must be stopped at all costs. That rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination. That from Senator
utter
Vance.
Bullshit.
Okay, well, go ahead, Chuck. Take it.
What utter BS. Come on. J.D. Vance is a smart guy, wrote a great book, and he was considered one of the smartest writers in the country until he dumbed himself right down to the ankles in order to be a MAGA supporter. I mean, this is maggot stuff, not MAGA, maggot stuff that he's offering. You've got a deranged young guy with a rifle trying to murder a former president of the United States, and you want to say that guy is deranged because of anything Biden says? You think that guy can? Most Americans don't respond to anything Biden says. Never mind young deranged people who have their own issues. But to draw that kind of conclusion, especially by someone who wants to be the vice president, is, I think, just batshit crazy. Mm-hmm. I think all people in media overdo it with this idea that everything they say has maximum impact, and everyone is voting and even shooting based on what media people are saying. I've been a media person my entire adult life, but I hope it never gets to a point where I think that every time I speak, it's the Sermon on the Mount, and people will be moved. I'm not doing the Sermon on the Mount. I'm just talking to my brothers, Johnny and Ryan. That's what I'm doing. I'm a normal human being. I'm not supernatural. I don't have supernatural powers, and I don't have the power to make people want to kill people. I don't.
And going back to the Polyev tweet, I agree with Charles, being glad he's dead. The most horrible thing about the shooter being killed is now people are going to speak for him, right? We don't get to put this guy in a courtroom. We don't get to hear why he did this. Now everyone's going to put words in his mouth. That's the worst part of all of this, is that we didn't get to know, get inside the mind of why this person did it. And of course, now it's going to be drawn as he's a crazy leftist wacko, and that's it, right?
Yeah. I mean, although a Republican donor. So
exactly.
They're still learning a lot about this 20-year-old shooter, about this Thomas Crooks from Pennsylvania.
He's from Bethel, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people in Bethel? I know Bethel. I know almost every inch of that particular part of the world because I had radio shows all over Pennsylvania, like a lot of places like Alberta, and others were very kind to me. I'm very grateful to them. But I wouldn't show gratitude by playing the role of an ignoramus. Do you know how many people in Bethel, Pennsylvania are liberal? Nobody. Nobody. And the idea that he is a liberal, or that he's a member of any kind of liberal organization, liberal faction, that he's moved by MSNBC and blah blah blah, that is, to put it politely, hooey.
Yeah. Why don't we get to what the president had to say about this? So here's Joe Biden just a short time after the shooting.
The Republican convention will start tomorrow. I have no doubt they'll criticize my record and offer their own vision for this country. I'll be traveling this week making the case for our record and the vision, my vision of the country, our vision. I'll continue to speak out strongly for our democracy, stand up for our Constitution and the rule of law, to call for action at the ballot box, no violence on our streets. That's how democracy should work. We debate and disagree. We compare and contrast the character of the candidates, the records, the issues, the agenda, the vision for America. But in America, we resolve our differences at the battle box. That's how we do it, at the battle box, not with bullets. The power to change America should always rest in the hands of the people, not in the hands of a would-be assassin.
So that's President Joe Biden talking about this. He had made a comment just a short time before this about, putting the crosshairs on Trump, which I think, in a situation, a nightmare situation like this, where somebody actually attempts to kill Donald Trump, a comment like that comes back to haunt you. There's a lot of, you remember when the head Nenshi kind of pushed back on me when I was interviewing during the leadership race for the NDP, and what did I say? Something, Johnny? I said there was this moment where he was appearing at a Pride rally or something in Calgary, and I said, was that the moment you decided to pull the pin?
Yeah,
decided to pull the pin on the grenade and like seek the leadership or something. And then she says,
whoa.
He goes, whoa. Well, considering everything that's going on in the war, or everything that's going on in the world right now, we're trying to steer clear of the war analogies, but. The fact of the matter is, campaigns are war, and the race to the Oval Office is a war. And I kind of smirked at what Nenshi had to say.
Nenshi climbed on me too for saying that he was a warrior.
Sure,
I was complimenting him. I said, I don't want that kind of talk. You know what? With all due respect, and I had Nenshi, and I'm glad that he's the leader, and I'm glad he's going to give Danielle Smith a run for her money and all that kind of stuff. Instructing people constantly on what to say and how to say it, that is one of the reasons that the right is doing well all over the world. It is one of the reasons why conservatives are winning over liberals, because so many people are tired of getting Nenshi'd. They're so tired of being saying, don't say pull the pin, don't say warrior. Excuse me, I'm a grown-up. Stop treating me like a 5-year-old. This isn't a kindergarten class. This is a country.
It's true. But a comment like that does come back to haunt Joe Biden, right? Like whether it's reasonable or not. Of course, the comment's going to come back to haunt you when you say it's somebody we got to put the crosshairs on Trump, and then somebody does it.
It was
puts them just right to it, right of them.
It was an eerie morning too, because 3 hours before that, Biden was tweeting about on X about gun control and automatic weapons, and so like. All this stuff is it's really eerie, all this stuff. And now everyone, of course, is going back and digging up all the tweets from him. But yeah, that crosshairs comment you're going to see that like attached to pictures of Trump, with his fist raised like this and stuff like that.
Yeah. Does this do anything to talk about gun control in the United States? I mean, like a lot of the, the Republicans that are for obvious reasons speaking out against this, but rightfully so, are the same Republicans that have been wearing AR-15 lapel pins in Congress. Does this do anything, do you think, to the gun control conversation? Does this infuse more gun control talk or themes into the campaign over the next number of weeks leading up to November, do you think?
So I'll just do something annoying, not as annoying as Nenshi lecturing you on how to talk.
Oh, no, I don't want to obsess on that. I don't care about that.
I love obsessing. I'm an obsessive. Yeah. I've been diagnosed.
Sure.
Anyway, to be serious for a moment, on the gun thing. Sometimes a question needs to be answered with a question. So, what will this do for the gun thing? Let me just ask this question. Does anyone think that if that 20-year-old had a rougher time or maybe an even impossible time, does anyone think if that 20-year-old couldn't get his hands on a gun, does anyone think this world would have been a more dangerous place? Or is it possible this world would be a safer place if young, deranged people and other deranged people couldn't get their hands on guns? Now, I know there's no law that can make it impossible. Okay, you can't guarantee a 100% outcome. But I don't think that Canada is more dangerous than the United States, because it's much more difficult for people to get their hands on those weapons in this country. I think it makes Canada safer. I don't think there's any fundamental difference between human beings in the United States and human beings in Canada. They're all amorphous amalgamations of protoplasm. We're all human. You don't have to be a scientist to figure that out. Even a quack knows that. So since we're all human and we have less gun crime in Canada than we have in the United States, how can anyone say that gun laws don't make a difference?
Yeah, I'd be curious to see sort of what Trump does with it, right? Because it's obviously a lot easier for Joe Biden to pick up on this and go with it if it is indeed Joe Biden, which it very well may not be. And that's another story, obviously. I mean, it's absolutely wild. I know I keep using that word, wild, but that's all I've been able to think. And I kept texting that to you, Johnny. But it's all I can think about for the past day and a half.
Didn't seem
since
real.
This has happened, because, like, number one, to state the obvious. Sometimes you got to just state the obvious. I don't think that any reasonable person believes that this was a hoax or a setup or a false flag. This was a real incident. This was a real thing. This was an attempt on Donald Trump's life. Just try to wrap your mind around multiple shots being fired at you. I'm surprised there weren't more people killed behind him. But just think you survive an assassination attempt. A bullet whizzes past your ear, hits your ear. You're like 2 inches over, and it's lights out for this guy. And if the assassination attempt is successful, and if Donald Trump is murdered by this guy, if he's killed at the podium, then what? Then what happens in the United States, right? Like, we don't even, to point out how wild the landscape is right now, the presidential election is right now, and not even touching on the fact that we are weeks away. I mean, yeah, the election's in November. That, it's just a few months away, and the Democrats are in turmoil, and it's quite likely that the president may step down and be replaced. That's quite likely, but not even touching on that. Just looking at the Republican side of the ledger, assuming obviously that Donald Trump will be officially rolled out as the Republican nominee right now, I just can't wrap my mind around how crazy the situation is, and even more so, how much crazier it could have been had that attempted assassin been successful. I mean, can you imagine what a powder keg that would have been, kicking off with what happened in Pennsylvania?
Well, I can tell you, by the way, we keep saying that it happened in Pennsylvania. One of the reasons that matters is because everyone on the Democratic side of the ledger agrees that Joe Biden cannot possibly win the Electoral College without Pennsylvania. No one should doubt that Pennsylvania after this is absolutely going into the Republican column. But had Donald Trump been assassinated, he would have been seen as a martyr by Republicans. That too would have motivated vote. Whoever the next in line would have been, whoever would have emerged at a different kind of convention this week in Milwaukee as the nominee for president on the Republican side, that person would have invoked Donald Trump's name thousands and thousands of times, and the visuals, and told his followers and Republicans everywhere and independents who lean Republican that in the name of Donald Trump, the Democrats absolutely have to lose. And he would say the Democrats are responsible for the murder of Donald Trump. And as heinous as that sounds, as ugly as that feels to the Canadian ear, you know damn well, if Donald Trump were dead right now, the newspapers, TV, social media would be filled with Joe Biden and the Democrats murdered the president.
We're talking to Charles Adler in just a moment, Chuck. I want to get to an email from Barbara. She wrote it into the show before this happened on the weekend. Barbara actually wrote into the show after you and I and Johnny were joking around about whether or not Joe Biden should accept Donald Trump's challenge to play 18 holes of golf. He was going to spot him 20 strokes and donate $1 million, Trump was, to Biden's charity of choice if he could beat him. So Barbara wrote in about that, but I think that the spirit of her email holds true. I want to get to that in just a second. But every single week, Charles Adler is presented on Real Talk by our friends at Tice Automotive Consulting. You can find them online at ticeautomotive.com. If you're in the market for a new or maybe even more so a gently used vehicle, but number one, you get the heebie-jeebies, either walking into a car dealership or scanning Facebook Marketplace or Kijiji. You're afraid you're going to get ripped off. Maybe you've had a bad experience in past. Maybe you just don't know your way around a vehicle and you don't want to buy a lemon. Take 2 seconds to check out ticeautomotive.com. Tice makes buying used or new vehicles easy. They fill in the gaps that can make the buying experience stressful. They transform it into one that's worry-free, even fun. Chris Fisher is the magic behind Tice. He's a certified mechanic. He'll talk to you about your ideal vehicle, color, year, make. What's your budget? He'll source it out. He'll find it. He'll conduct the extensive mechanical inspection, and he'll deliver your new ride to you with white glove service. You can even sign up, subscribe through the year to have Chris or his team picking up your vehicle, taking it for oil changes, the whole 9 yards. No matter what you're looking for, whatever your budget, Chris can help you find it for a reasonable flat fee. The fee is based on the price of the vehicle. It all makes sense at ticeautomotive.com. Our friends at Athabasca University want to remind you that this is a perfect time of year to start thinking about your plans for the fall. And if you're considering kicking off that post-secondary journey, take a couple of minutes today to check out the AU Advantage at athabascau.ca with programs and courses designed so you can complete your education wherever and whenever it works for you. Open your options with the online offerings at Athabasca University. More than 94% of their alumni say they're satisfied with the quality of their education. Learn more about what makes AU unique at athabascau.ca. And our friends at California Closets want you to know that you've got absolutely nothing to lose by visiting their website, californiaclosets.ca, and requesting a free consultation with their design professionals. They've got years of experience helping folks determine the best solutions to those storage quandaries they find themselves in, whether it's a guest bedroom, a home office, a mudroom, a laundry room, maybe it's your garage. California Closets' team of designers and installers are the best in the business, working with any budget, and you've always got the confidence that comes with a lifetime guarantee. That free consultation starts when you register today at californiaclosets.ca. Charles Adler, our guest, first episode of every week. Chuck, after you and I were joking with Johnny last week about Donald Trump's challenge to Joe Biden to play 18 holes of golf, this on the heels of that bizarre debate interaction. People can check out our YouTube shorts on our YouTube channel if they want to see a 60-second summary of us joking around about the two of them playing golf. But Barbara didn't find it so funny. So she writes into talk@ryanjesperson.com. She says, Jess, I've been watching your episodes over the past week or so. She says, I wanted to respond to your comments about people not allowing for discourse, people becoming too polarized in the current political environment. Barbara says, I'm an American, married to a Quebecer who lived and ran a business in the States for more than 30 years. I was a registered, canvassing, active, supportive Republican for a quarter century. When Sarah Palin and the Tea Party rose to popularity, and then Trump descended on that gold elevator to call Mexicans and immigrants rapists, I was mortified at the rapid shift in the party, and I could no longer support it. When Trump was president, it was the first time that my Canadian husband began to experience discrimination, being questioned about his accent, being told to move back to where he came from, even being threatened. So we moved back to Canada in 2019. Around that time, my own siblings began to harass me about being a teacher, being a therapist, being a groomer, part of an education system that was forcing transgenderism on children. And after a very painful process, says Barbara, I eventually had to block family members from my life. So, Ryan, I take issue with your statement that you admired Trump for his entertainment qualities and the ways in which he was attempting to bait Joe Biden into playing golf. Trump is not entertaining. He is not cute nor funny. He is a clear and present danger to the United States. He has been and continues to cause irreversible destruction to faith and democratic institutions. The manifesto, Project 2025, lays out a clear and dangerous plan for fascism in America. We're on the edge of a very dark and dangerous time for the states and the world should he retake the levers of power. These are not normal times for normal disagreements and normal discourse. Absolutely every single person with a platform, including you, Ryan, must take a stand against him and the entire GOP. Since living in Canada, it has been devastating to watch Canada travel the same path with its own Conservative Party. Don't think it can't happen here. Many were naive in 2016 and thought that Trump was a harmless goof. Now we stand at a point of certain violence. She wrote this before Saturday, and the possibility of another coup attempt. She says, I love your show. I sense that you're a genuine, caring person, but please understand the moment we're in. For the sake of my American grandchildren, writes Barbara, we must take this seriously and fight back against everything Trump stands for. Those with platforms have a responsibility to the common human good to utilize voices for freedom, anti-fascism, and anti-Christian nationalism everywhere. Because once it takes hold in our beautiful countries, it will be virtually impossible to dial it back. That from Barbara. What do you think?
I think you ought to book her as a guest. That is one of the most magnificent letters that you have read since you and I have been doing this for a couple of years now. I'm not saying that I can't disagree with some of her points. I'm not saying that I disagree with the idea of you saying what you want to say. This is a free country. But substantively, in terms of where the Republican Party is going, substantively in terms of what that Project 2025 is about, and Barbara's identifying it as American fascism. On those substantive points, I agree with Barbara 100%, and I'd love to see her on camera with you on a future show.
Yeah, this, and I see more and more people talking about this Project 2025 in the chat. I saw that Ken was asking us. Have you been digging into it a little bit?
Yeah, because it does. If you read it, it's got over 200 people who have either been employed by Trump before or when he was in the White House. I think it's got like 6 secretaries on it, former Trump employees as well. So, I mean, yeah, I've read it, and it's basically like a second American Revolution. They want to ban abortion pills. They want to, take over, school administration. They want to do sweeping tax cuts to obviously things they don't agree with. But the whole thing is just, even Trump has not even touched it because he knows it's just like it's too far out there even for him. But I don't know. You never know what could happen. But I think all the things we were afraid of with Trump getting elected, 98% of that didn't come to fruition either, right? So
yeah, Trump on the Truth Social platform did post about this back on the 5th of July. I don't know if you saw this, Chuck. I'm sure you did. He said, "I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who's behind it."
Oh, of course he does.
No, but just wait. Here's the kicker. He says, "I disagree with some of the things they're saying." Here's the thing. Some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. Anything they do, I wish them luck. But I have nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
That was like ridiculous, abysmal, and you wish them luck. Okay.
Well, the thing that, if you want to, once again, pose a question to those people who doubt it, he's dismissing something that is coming from the Heritage Foundation. There is not a single Supreme Court nominee that Donald Trump has made that doesn't have the blessing of the Heritage Foundation. There is no so-called think tank in America that has more influence on today's Republicans and on Donald Trump's past administration and potentially future administration. No think tank that has more influence than the Heritage Foundation. So when Donald Trump says he knows nothing about it, it's just not true.
Of course he does, but people in the chat right now are saying, well, there's footage of him publicly acknowledging it. Send it to us, because I've looked, because I thought it would be a great clip to play. He has never mentioned it by name. He has never. I mean, there's little things. People can tie little words to everything and say that he's talking about this, and maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But we've never seen footage of him directly invoking the name or his support for it. So.
Let's talk about what this means for the Democrats. Aside from, pausing campaign advertising for a couple of days, aside from, and I have no doubt, listen, we've seen, obviously, the United States more so than Canada. We have seen Canadian politicians threatened. We've seen attempts at violence towards some Canadian political leaders and certainly intimidation. But the United States, I mean, obviously, Abraham Lincoln, JFK, Ronald Reagan shot. There's many examples. Gabby Giffords, there's many examples. You can go on and on and on and on and on. So I don't doubt the sincerity of those on Team Democrat, including the president, saying, condemning in the strongest terms, violence of any sort, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But to call, to speak honestly, to speak and talk real, it sucks for them to have to concede for a few days what must feel like even more ground that will seem even more and more difficult to gain back, right? This doesn't bring the Democrats any closer to Trump. It doesn't give Biden any more of a fighting chance. And while it may have paused criticism around Biden or calls for Biden to step down from within his own party, it's certainly not going away. So, Chuck, what do you think happens over the next 2 weeks?
Well, I think Biden has to. I don't know whether Biden can do it today or tomorrow, and I don't know whether the Democrats are disciplined enough to do it. But the Democrats have got to make the case that the temperature in the United States has to be turned down, and they have to make the case the temperature has been turned up in recent years by Trump and the MAGA Republicans. All you have to do is get out the tape. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about Charlottesville, January 6th, and even what happened in Pennsylvania over the weekend. The Democrats have to make the case that America has a choice. They can become more violent, more chaotic, or less violent and less chaotic. Of course, if anyone wants to say that Political violence has no place in America. It's ridiculous. You just mentioned JFK, Lincoln, and others. You could say the American Revolution itself. The American Revolution was an act of political violence. I'm not being anti-American when I say that. I am simply being truthful. Who could doubt that the War of Independence, the American Revolution, was an act of political violence against the British Empire at the time? Of course it was. Here's the deal. If Joe Biden and the Democrats, or Joe Biden leaving and somebody else taking over as a Democratic nominee, if they make a disciplined, eloquent, articulate, passionate case, the way Barbara did in that letter, they still have a ghost of a chance. But if they end up trying to soften their message, if they try to cool it as far as their own passion is concerned, they've got a problem. I don't want to get into a whole bunch of polling right now, but for the last number of months, people who are motivated to vote Republican have far more passion, are far more excited about the Republican ticket than those people are motivated to vote Democrat. That's one of the reasons why it would still be an intelligent decision to replace Joe Biden. They have to find someone who excites Democrats. And I think the message, I think the ballot question of do you want more chaos or less chaos, more violence or less violence, is a winning question, because violence in America, political violence, and everything we're talking about right now, it's the only thing that Americans are talking about. Of course, they don't like the price of broccoli, but they don't honestly believe that Donald Trump is going to make the price of broccoli come down.
I wish he would. Oh, man, that broccoli's expensive, Ryan. And I eat a lot of it.
Charles Adler. We can get more into the price of broccoli in future weeks. Adler joining us, the first episode of every week, presented by our friends at Tice Automotive Consulting. We'll chat with you again soon, pal.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Johnny Broccoli.
Johnny Broccoli. There you go. We can have light moments amid heavy conversation. No, I'm just really still rattled by this whole thing.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it, obviously.
We didn't have a lot of time to digest it either.
Well,
it was
no,
the
I mean, it's
weekend.
just,
we were both doing
and
things.
we were, and I was sort of like yesterday, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it.
Yeah.
It's like and I don't know about everybody's kind of got their normal real life way of how these things happen. Like, sure, there's talk shows and interviews and all that kind of stuff, but also we all have like our friends and our group chats and our text messages, and we go to Instagram and we see what people are posting on Twitter and all this, and you got the people at like right out of the gates, crying false flag, like, oh, he went down and then he cut his ear with a razor blade hidden in his right, like this kind of stuff. People are going, well, there's no blood spatter.
It's not that good of an actor.
There's no blood spatter on his shirt, so that doesn't mimic ballistics. All of a sudden, everybody's a ballistics expert on Twitter and this sort of a thing.
Like an innocent person was murdered.
An innocent person murdered. The shooter killed. Obviously, hundreds of, if not thousands, hundreds of lives put at risk. I'm blown away that more people weren't hit. Yeah. And obviously with a shooter that, I mean, whatever. You don't want to make light of this, but like there were multiple rounds fired.
Yeah.
And one barely hit. Like, obviously,
if you want to say anything,
it was all over the place
against the Trump team, it's that the security's totally fucking
Well,
inadequate.
that's
You've got video
that's
of
not
people.
The Trump team. That's the U.S. Secret Service.
That's what I mean, though.
Yeah, that's not the Trump team.
But obviously, he has some say in who he employs there. Does
I don't
he
think
not?
so.
No,
man.
not at all.
Secret Service. That's like.
And I know Secret Service. I'm not saying the Secret Service are dumbasses or anything. They're former Navy SEALs. I know these guys are highly trained individuals, but there's footage of people seeing this guy on the roof before
Witness
and
testimony.
calling, screaming to people, get over here. Him standing up slightly, looking around, getting back down, getting behind the gun, taking aim, and nothing happened. That's a big miss by their team.
Do you follow Pete Souza on Twitter
yeah, of course,
at all? The former White House photographer. Where was he? I think that's who I'm thinking of, isn't it? But did you see the former White House photographer? He posted a photo. I don't have it handy, but he posted it yesterday. I think he said the caption was something like normal protocol or whatever it was. And it was Barack Obama at the time he was president. But the focus was, he was blurred out in the foreground, and the focus was on a Secret Service agent up on the roof of the building behind him with big, binoculars, kind of keeping an eye out. And there, you're right. There was that
they did have that presence there. We saw they had snipers.
But the witness testimony of people saying that attendees at this rally had noticed a guy walking around on the roof ahead of time, and you kind of think, if there was a bit of maybe a breakdown in the protective detail there, but then you have the conspiracy theories around that too. I mean, there's always going to be conspiracy theories, but I think the FBI was quick.
Sure.
The FBI communicated with, and I won't even say the American public, I'll say that people around the world, because this was and is the biggest story in the world right now. The news cycle moves quick, but right now it is. Very quick to say the FBI is investigating this as an assassination attempt. Yeah. Like this, and I think that was an important thing. That is an important thing to get out of the way early, to say, to at least communicate that this is not some like Trump publicity stunt.
No.
I mean, this would be the most inappropriate, worst, most brutal, but judgment lacking publicity stunt of all time. Yeah. But it's not.
No, and you can bet that they're going to be reviewing now what they do. But it just seemed weird to me that, like, from now on, anywhere Trump goes, you can bet, like, in a 10-block radius, nobody be allowed on any roof. But to me, maybe another thing I was thinking when this happened, I was like, because I'm seeing the video of people seeing this person climbing up, getting down on the roof beforehand, screaming at people, hey, get over here for this guy. Maybe it's just because Trump's schedule is so packed. He does rally after rally after rally that maybe they're just overworked. Maybe they can't do the logistics for every single place. But this was a roof close that I feel like I don't know why they didn't have eyes on it, or at least the guy had a door saying don't get up there. That's the other thing. We don't know how he got up there. Did he climb? Did he go in and then up to the roof through a door? So that's other things. We have to wait and see what happened, right? And that's another thing. I don't agree with Polyev or anyone tweeting glad he's dead. I wish he was alive. I want to hear what this guy has to say. I want to know how he did this. I want to see him in a courtroom. I want to get inside his head. There's no manifesto. There's nothing. It's just question marks.
Yeah. Not even old enough to vote. This guy, 20 years old. It is. I will say this. I don't remember who it was. It was a Canadian political commentator. I've been reading so much on this over the weekend, but someone said, Polyev's been using the word wacko a lot to describe his political opponents, in particular, Justin Trudeau, obviously his policies, and to a certain degree, Jagmeet Singh as well. Somebody said, it is wacko to tweet that you're glad that the suspected shooter is dead, right? The suspected shooter. To be glad that a suspect is dead, right, is kind of a weird thing to tweet. It's not even it's not even the convicted shooter, it's the suspected shooter. No, I don't think this story is about Pierre Poilievre, and obviously Poilievre and Trudeau and everybody else is their teams are firing off a quick response to condemn this and to respond to it. But I did think that was kind of an interesting take. Akat in the live chat, Akat83 says that a relevant read right now is I've never heard of this book before, by Carol Leonig. Looks like it was published just a few years ago. Is it 2021? Zero Fail. The Rise and Fall of the Secret Service. It's a Pulitzer Prize winning author, a New York Times bestseller. So we'll take your...
Voting age 18 in the States is what people are saying.
What's that?
You said not enough. That guy wasn't old enough to vote.
Oh, but what I'm saying is that this would have been his first election. Yeah. Right? So, yeah, it's 20 years old, hadn't even voted yet. So, but yeah, this would have been his first election. Not like I'm like lamenting the loss or this guy couldn't vote. But, and I saw that somebody else in the live chat was saying, well, what's, what more do we know about the shooter? Kind of like some of the, I hate putting it this way, the standard stuff that we hear about shooters, but that he was like relentlessly bullied in high school, that, there were issues around maybe, feeling isolated or alone, not justifying any of this, obviously, but just these are, as we learn a little bit more, I guess, are we saying alleged shooter at this point? That's kind of what you're supposed to say in a circumstance like this, although FBI also providing some interesting details, saying that based on audio ballistics report and audio forensics, that they suspect up to 3 weapons could have been fired during this attack as well in a short order of time. So we'll learn more about this. Obviously, it's a story that we'll continue to talk about. Me, at this point, most interested in what you think about this. I mean, I was curious to hear Adler lay out his thoughts on why he thought that essentially immediately on Saturday night, the minute that this happens, the minute that Trump survives this, that the election is all said and done. Do you share that perspective? Like, do you believe that it's set in stone, the election result now? Do you think that Saturday night it's basically set and determined the course of the election?
Well, I said that at
do
the
you
start.
think though? Do you think that you think a new Democratic nominee could change it? You think that
maybe, but
a month or two of time could change it?
Sure. I mean, if you brought someone else out, but I don't see I don't see anything getting changed. I think Biden's against Trump. I don't see them making a last minute change. Maybe if someone in their camp is smart enough at a last minute to bring someone else in, or like you said, if something health wise happens to Biden in the next few months or time before the election, maybe. But I mean, this was a moment. These pictures we're seeing, these are going to be ingrained in people's minds when they go to the ballot box. And I said it again. Again, not a political expert, not a guy, just a guy who looks on Twitter and sees these pictures and thinks, if I'm a person in the States sitting at home who has secret support for Trump, who didn't come out last election, I think these pictures, push me to do it this time.
Yeah, people are asking, good questions about, for example, drones. Why weren't they using drones to patrol rooftops? You wonder if, obviously this is probably a wake-up call. That was Lauren, who wonders if drones were used specifically for rooftops. He says apparently not. This is obviously something that and it also all, just to be real, like it happens so fast.
Very quickly, yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And Trump's not the type of guy, I probably no president is, but Trump's also not the type of guy that wants to go around surrounded by bulletproof glass everywhere.
No, he has
right?
had a few events, though,
but he wanted to pop up, right?
Yeah.
Like he wanted to pop up as soon as possible.
Yeah, and they're like, what are you doing?
From behind that podium. Who is it? Horse Lake Ranch says, really? Suspect? It says, LOL, you're nuts. This is just from years of court reporting, Horse Lake Ranch, and covering trials and covering crime. Until someone's convicted, technically you're supposed to call them a suspect, right? Like when even in police-involved shootings, when the police take down, you're supposed to call them a suspect till they're convicted. I'm not saying the guy didn't fire the shots, but that's just technically what you're supposed to call him. Jillian says the white kid on the roof didn't set off alarms. They were looking for Mexicans and immigrants. That from Jillian, who scores a point with that comment there. Let us know what you think to talk at RyanJesperson.com. We'll get to your emails through this week. Maybe it's a flamethrower. Presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Final episode of every week, typically on a Friday. Your chance to blow off a little steam. Bring us your hot takes. Again, those are real emails to talk at RyanJesperson.com. That's the flamethrower. On a completely different note, shout out to the winners of the richest rodeo in Canada, including Jason Glass, who repeats as winner of the Rangeland Derby at the Calgary Stampede last night. We talked about rodeo on our Real Talk Roundtable just a couple of days ago as Camille Labchuk, an animal rights attorney with Animal Justice, and Aritha van Herk, who's an author out of Calgary, debated whether or not rodeo should be banned. And it was a fantastic conversation, and I'm grateful that the both of them joined us. If you missed it, I liked what you did with our short, by the way. You got to subscribe to our YouTube channel to check out the highlights and the shorts. A lot of great ways to take in episodes that you may have missed. Here's a brief summary of a couple of the points that our debaters made just a couple of days ago. You say ban books, ban TikTok, ban abortion has overtaken civil discourse.
I think we'd be far better off banning plastic bags and food additives than banning rodeo.
I think that people just assume without questioning that stampede rodeo events are part of some sort of Western heritage. There's so many events that occur that would just never happen on a modern ranch, and they're designed to entertain. They're not designed to showcase the human-animal relationship.
The notion that all animals are anthropomorphized, they're not pets. Let me tell you, if you have ever chased a runaway steer, it is not a pet.
You simply can't say that about them. Steer is forced to compete in steer wrestling events. Competitors snapping the neck of a steer. He slowly dies, and it just kills me.
Within 2 hours, Animal Justice had up on your website, give us money and we will double it. It's a great monetization moment for you guys.
Wow, if you think that we're opposed to animal cruelty for money reasons, I don't know what to say about that.
Well, you're not averse to earning money from it.
Whew, that got heated there.
I thought that it was absolutely fantastic, and the two of them really brought it. And I thought, like, for the most part, came at it from a point of good faith.
Of course.
Aritha, who's written books on the history of the Stampede and kind of the history of the West, she
was very intelligent.
Talks to us about why she feels the way she does, and then Camille with some sort of, undeniable facts and statistics. It was, another tough year at the Stampede with a couple of horses going down and a steer being, euthanized after
and Aritha knew
steer
that.
wrestling. And
she knew that Camille was going to do her homework. So I loved that Aritha didn't just come in with facts. She went and looked at what they'd been doing and called her to the carpet on making money from it. Now, is it the best point? No, because that's what they do.
When she said that, I went, ooh.
Yeah, but they show this to make people to show people the horrors. So obviously that's what they do, and they raise money for supportive animal causes. But I like the point that Aritha made that you are still profiting off, kind of the horrors that happen with animals that you preach against. But I love Camille. I followed her on Twitter afterwards. She has a lot of great things to say. Very smart as well.
And at the end, not spoiler alert, I guess at the end, they both agreed on something on live horse transport. So check out the episode for sure. Horse Lake Ranch says these animal rights activists don't want the end of rodeos. How else would they make a living in Virtue Signal? Ken says for the most part, it was a great back and forth. And Just Joe says, I can't with this. Rodeo animals are treated better than most children. There was a great feature on the weekend showing the chuck wagon drivers, with their horses, and it's tough to deny that those horses are treated anything but very well. But that's not to suggest that there aren't injuries and that there aren't fatalities, because there are. Regardless, we're not going to rehash out the debate here. The point is, make sure you check it out. And of course, if you didn't know, that debate was prompted by the dialogue feature, which is one that I love. They do it in every single issue of Alberta Views magazine. They take two people of repute, two people with well thought out arguments. They give them a question. In this case, should we ban rodeo? And then they have them hash it out on the pages of Alberta Views. If you check it out online, you can also read it online. We encourage you to subscribe and to support independent journalism. This is the magazine for engaged citizens. The promo code AVRJ. That's off. Alberta Views, Ryan Jesperson. Can you believe it?
It's
half
insane.
off a 1-year subscription. The code AVRJ at albertaviews.ca. It means that a year of Alberta Views, 10 issues delivered to your door, is just $20. We've got a feel-good story. I love this, out of Canada, out of Nova Scotia, submitted to us by Celine, coming up in just a quick second. But before we get there, we want to remind you that our friends at Complete Care Restoration, despite the fact that they've got teams out hard at work right now rebuilding communities that have been damaged, in some cases leveled by wildfire. These are from last year's wildfire. I mean, a lot of this rebuilding, of course, takes time. But they're also ready to respond 24/7 to anything that happens disaster-related this summer, anywhere in the province of Alberta or beyond, whether it's flood, fire. Maybe it's a renovation project gone wrong. You thought it was a small matter of opening up a wall or two, and all of a sudden you've discovered black mold or realized you're dealing with asbestos. Maybe it's lead paint. Maybe it's smoke damage. You get the idea. They've got a team of certified professionals ready to respond today to help restore your property, rebuild your peace of mind. You can find them online at completecarerestoration.ca. And John, we have a very special announcement from our friends at Friesen Brothers.
Oh.
Friesen Brothers is hosting Watermelon Fest. Yeah, that's right. And they're welcoming National Watermelon Queen Jules Singley at their Rabbit Hill store on the 20th of July, at their Stony Plain store that same day, Glenora the Sunday after, July 21st, Fort Saskatchewan, same day. All other stores, there are going to be appearances and events going on. You want to check out their website for full details, including times. They're going to have a watermelon eating contest where participants have a chance to win a $100 Friesen Brothers gift card. Kids are going to receive free balloons and crowns, a ton of watermelon specials through the day. Check out friesen.com/watermelonfest.
Amazing. I would show up with one of those watermelons with the eyes cut out on my head, but I don't want to be painted as a Rider fan.
I was going to say, you don't want to be associated with the...
But that sounds like an amazing event. Shout out to my friend Eric Bull, one of the newest butchers at the Friesen Bros Glenora location. Yeah, he's actually a great butcher, and he's actually going to Scotland to train up on his skills, because Scotland's one of the craziest places for butchery. But to get the volume that he wanted to learn before he goes there in 6 months, he's at Friesen Bros. Do you know why? Because they get the best cuts of meats, he says, and just the volume they do. He's like, that's the place I want to be. I want to be cutting and doing things with butchery to the highest degree I can before I go. So there you go.
Friesen Brothers, and I think that people would know if they listen to the show, often or frequently, Friesen Brothers started as a butcher shop in Hinton, Alberta, like coming up on 70 years ago, if you can believe it. Still family owned, so he's an amazing legacy.
He's got some crazy stories.
How would you do in a watermelon eating contest, do you think?
How would I do?
Yeah.
If it's that yellow watermelon, I'd probably go till I vomit it.
I'm assuming that it's got to be the seed-free, the seedless watermelon.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to really crush it. Did you see these guys just the other weekend? It was like 2 weekends ago. The Nathan's hot dog eating contest.
Oh, no.
And Joey Chestnut. Did you hear this story?
Of course.
So
Everyone knows
Chestnut,
Joey Chestnut, yeah.
but he was banned. He was banned from the Nathan's contest because he signed an endorsement deal with a competing brand, which is like plant-based hot dogs. And so he was banned from competing in the hot dog eating championship. So it was like a wide open field. And I have to apologize to the guy. We didn't know we were going to talk about this, so I don't have the background information. But there's a new kid on the block. There's a new guy crowned the hot dog eating champ. I was most impressed. The same fella won the lemonade. I don't know the word they call it. Guzzling. It looks like the lemonade guzzling contest. To drink a gallon of lemonade. Okay, so 4 liters of lemonade. So put it into perspective.
Like a milk jug. No, that's a 2 liter. Is that a...
No, milk jugs are, the big ones are 4 liters, like the big huge ones. The cardboard ones are 2 liters. So imagine 2 of the cardboard ones or one of the big 4 liters. How long do you think it would take the world champion? How long do you think it did take the world champion to drink a gallon, 4 liters of lemonade? How long do you think?
Well, I'm guessing it's in like a record time. So I don't know, like 30 seconds?
21 seconds. Jeez. 4 liters of lemonade. And this guy, people can Google it if you want to watch it. It's like impressive and disturbing at the same time. You know those types of scenarios. And this guy is just like they're like in big. It's like a big wide mouth mason jar.
Does it come up afterwards?
So here's the thing. So he's hammering it down. Like he's just goo, kind of like how our boxer Moses drinks water. Yeah. and then the other guys, and they're not all like everybody. It's all shapes and sizes, folks that enter these competitions. Like you've got like the sort of folks that look like they could hammer down a whole bunch of food, and then you got the folks where you're like, where is that even going?
Oh,
like,
you see some of the women that do
guys.
it. They're like, yeah.
But there was this real hefty fella beside the winner. And
he could handle it.
No. That was. I'm not going to show the video. I'm going to search it right now because it's pretty. Like it's just basically a guy puking all over the place. But he doesn't even get. He gets like 4 inches down the jug. Like he's just. And the other guy's already done. But the guy he's doing his best. He's doing his best. And then his body just says no. And so you have the champ. I mean, this video it's something else. You Google it yourself. Approach at your own risk. So the champ is standing there and he's like raising his arms, and then they put the belt over his shoulder, and he's wearing 2 belts because he's like just won everything that weekend. So he's there celebrating, and then the guy beside him is just like bringing up lemonade and it's on the table and it's on the floor, and then finally somebody kind of comes up and is like, buddy, like take it off the stage. Like, and he just can't help himself. It's just,
I'm not into it. It's something I would never, I don't want to do it, but I will go into the contest. And then when they go, everybody go, I just eat slowly and just enjoy the watermelon. But Friesen Bros, some of the best watermelon ever. I don't know. All their produce, all their fruit is like top notch. They've always got something like strange and out there, not bad, but just like, what is this fruit? I don't even know what this is. I have to like Google image it to find out what it is. Every month they've always got something exotic in there. It's one of the reasons my partner Jatinder just loves Friesen Bros for the produce, even though she has nothing to do with the butcher's table. She walks right by it.
Hey, that's okay. And Friesen Brothers.
That's what I'm saying. Something for everyone.
I think this has turned into like a 5-minute advertisement for our friends at Friesen Brothers, but they do have a little something for everybody, including their plant-based section. Yeah. Okay, so fine. I hear you, and this is why you have to show up on the live chat. Because I hear you loud and clear. You are demanding that we show this on the show. So here we are, courtesy of ESPN. Here's the video. Johnny, let's take it. This is Eric Badlands. He's the winner, and this is what it looks like. I mean, this is why you got to watch on YouTube as opposed to listening on the podcast. This is what it looks like Watch the guy on the left with the mohawk. He's the one having real
that's
trouble.
the guy?
But Eric Badlands is the guy in the middle, and he's the king of the castle. Look at this, 21 seconds. Look at this, 21 seconds. Look at him. And he's been there before. Like, he's not even surprised he won. He knew it. Look, everybody else has like 3.5 gallons left, right? Look at him. He just,
Let's
go. Feels good. That is Eric Badlands Booker. Eric Badlands Booker, who is the Nathan's 2024 Lemonade Chug contest winner.
Is that it? Or are we going to show the guy?
That's it. That's okay. I think we'll leave it to everyone's imagination, or you all understand how to use a Google search if you want to see the poor fella next to him just absolutely losing everything. But congratulations to Eric Badlands Booker. Now, that could have been our positive reflection. I mean, why not? What's more positive and exciting and encouraging and endearing than somebody putting down, I don't know, what is that, 30,000 calories of lemonade? Like, isn't that just sugar, lemon juice, and water?
Yeah.
Imagine the shakes you'd have after that. Yeah, imagine the tremoring. So we'll get to another story. You know what we do to kick off every single week. Obviously, the news cycle can be tough. And so courtesy of our friends at Kuby Renewable Energy, we take a second to focus on positive stories, to take a look at stories that are restoring our faith in humanity, the feel-good stories, so to speak. And this is a submission from Celine. Celine tunes in every single day from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Celine, we sure appreciate that. She asked if we had heard the story out of Nova Scotia. We hadn't, and we thank you for sharing it. Check this out. This is amazing. A set of grandparents in rural Nova Scotia receiving the most special handwritten letter from their granddaughter, who wrote them a postcard from summer camp. But the reason that they received that letter was because a Canada Post worker went above and beyond. Dana Modier is the 12-year-old from Nova Scotia that was attending summer camp in Dartmouth, and she wanted to reply to some letters from her grandparents while she was there. And but get this, she forgot to put a stamp on the letter. She forgot to put a stamp on, and so, get this, the grandparents reach out because they hadn't received it. They had heard from their granddaughter, but they hadn't received anything, and so they put a note in the mailbox that said, "Dear postal worker, at our summer camp, at our granddaughter's summer camp, there was a letter. There was a letter that was deposited in," but check this out. This is the letter. The McPhee Center for Creative Learning sends this and says, "We're hoping to maybe track that letter down. It would have been dropped in the box, but it was dropped in without a stamp." And Christine Fong is our hero of the week. Christine Fong is the letter carrier that found the original letter, went to Canada Post, to the sorting station, and started doing her best to track it down. I love that Global News picked up this story. Shout out to Zach Power for reporting on it. She said, "When I read that the child had sent a postcard from day camp to their grandmother with no postage, the first thing that I thought was that I had to find this missing piece of letter mail. It was a simple request. It is human decency just to follow through and do what you got to do."
Way to go.
And so she did this. Christine Fong went through, did what she had to do to source out this. Imagine how many pieces of mail she was sorting through. Imagine how difficult this would have been to find the letter with no postage stamp and ensure that it got to Daya's grandparents. Of course, now imagine how special, how cherished that will be. This is the whole point of Positive Reflections.
Yeah.
These are the stories that we want to feature. The stories of everyday heroes who go above and beyond to make somebody else's day without the promise of reward, of publicity, of recognition, of thanks. But we can show our gratitude right here on the show, courtesy of our friends at Kuby Energy. And a shout out to Celine for sharing this with us. That story was not on our radar till you put it there, and we appreciate you. A shout out to our viewers in Saskatchewan and across the country. talk@ryanjesperson.com is where you can send us an email, and kubyenergy.ca is where you can get a free solar quote. Hey, a lot of talk on the show last week, including our special edition Mean Tweets Flamethrower on Friday, if you missed it. A lot of talk about healthcare, why the system's broken, and ways that we can potentially fix it. Circle your calendar for Wednesday of this week. In a couple of days, I'm going to sit down in studio with Dr. Paul Parks, president of the Alberta Medical Association. We're going to talk problems. We're going to talk solutions. We hope you'll join us then. Make it a great week, Real Talkers.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson. Executive producer Josh Dunford. Technical producer John Hicks. General manager Katie Cook-Chivers. Account coordinator Lawrence Derlego. Human resources Lena Shepard. Website design